Hello, everybody. First of all, we are in the same room but in a different position because we decided to knock down an entire wall. So if you guys could first tell us whether or not you can hear us, that would be great. You can see us, that's good. How about hear us? I shall wait until you tell me.
That's not a great sign.
No. Oh,
yeah.
Maybe. Yay! Thank you, Chris, and everybody else.
We don't want to break all the walls. We need some of them, but that particular one is getting in the way.
Yeah, Chris is very firm about wall breaking too, so we have to be careful with that.
As he said, no more walls go down. We're keeping all the ones we've got now.
Indeed. All right, so as long as you can hear Barry and I, then we shall begin. Barry, you've been on before. I think the last time you were on, we were talking about passions and maybe wrath. It might have been a bit before
recent. So I've been working on wrath today, actually. Wrath or wrath?
You're the British person, so you tell me.
South African.
Oh, that's true. Drat. Lottie, what is it?
So wrath or wrath?
Wrath. Lottie says wrath, but it's coming out of my
mouth. On a postcard. I don't quite know how they'd manage that. But yeah, I think last time I was working on passions, hunger. I was talking about killing people in various ways.
Yes, that sounds familiar.
The new way of killing people is getting enemies to shoot at you. So this is enemies picking fights, basically.
Very nice.
We've got a set of behaviours which cause the enemies to start fighting each other or the player. Mm-hmm. So we've sort of got two types of enemies at the moment. They hate each other. One of them hates the player, so they're always trying to attack the player. And that's made it so they actually respond when you shoot at them. So It used to be, if they didn't care about you, they never cared about you, and you shot at them. But now if you shoot at you, they get a bit annoyed and they shoot back, which is fair enough.
Most certainly, if I was in the middle of space and being shot at, I would want to shoot back too. Very cool. And the other thing you've been working on is the chart. Right?
Yes.
If you could possibly, I mean, I imagine most of the people that are in this chat have probably played Sunless Sea, but for anyone who might not, could you explain what the chart is first?
Because it's uncharted territory for.
Yes. Hopefully Olivia didn't hear that.
She will, and she'll kill me for it. So yeah, the chart is basically where we show where the player is, where the player's been, and where they can get to. So yeah, the biggest part of that is probably the fog of war system, where we're sort of trying to cover bits up before the player gets there, which took far too long, as Lottie will agree. Lots of time playing around with shaders, getting it looking nice and fancy, and then getting all the actual scenes in. So we've got the problem that all the scenes aren't really there all the time. We sort of load them in as you get closer and then unload them in. Right. So we've had to do a lot of work with how we save things out, and so that we actually have the full chart on the player's save file. Sorry, it's not very dry and technical, is it?
No, it's very, I think a lot of people will be interested. For example, is there any differences between the way it worked in Sunless Sea versus now?
It's much prettier because I've got to work on it.
Oh yes, there's programmer art in it currently, isn't there?
There's some very, very programmer art. When it came to placing an icon for the port in the world, I sort of typed port into the sprite selection in Unity and selected the first thing. So the port, I think, is actually still just a bit of runway floating in space.
Excellent.
And the player's controller is a very familiar looking PlayStation button. That was Liam's fault. But we've got some fancy fog because I can make that all through shaders without actually having to be able to draw. So
I would imagine it's difficult to try to test the fog of war aspect if you don't have fog.
Yes.
And what did you say had been challenging, in regards to making this? What's causing a bit of mayhem?
The fog of war system. So I came up with a way which I thought would be nice and simple. Turned out to be not. That's game development in a nutshell right there. It was, I guess the way of putting it is the fog of war is we've got a very sort of low resolution image and we're stretching it out over the entire map. And as you fly over bits, we're sort of colouring bits of that in to not draw. And then I'm using a Perlin shader effect to change the UVs so that we I thought I'd get the technobabble in there.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's like a Perlin shader effect which distorts the UVs, which sort of gives it a nice
And what does
foggy
UV
effect.
stand for?
UV,
Or what is it?
it's a texture coordinate.
Okay.
So coordinates are sort of X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
So UV are texture coordinates because X and Y are already taken.
Fair enough.
More of a slang term. It's accidentally created modern art a couple of times.
I believe I've seen a few of those screenshots. I don't think they made it into the vlog though. But the PlayStation button did make it into the
You're getting
vlog.
in trouble with Sony there.
I don't think so.
Nobody tell Sony.
It's amongst the fog, so it's really
my very pretty fog, so I've hidden it.
exactly. And presumably this is something in development that might take a few iterations because, as you said, you've already kind of stumbled into something that took a bit longer than you thought, but presumably you're kind of like the first navigator, so to speak, in this regard, trying to make it functional, but then somebody like Paul or Toby or Liam will go over it later on.
It's actually just before I started, I said to Liam, so I'm on the trial, do I need to make it functional or pretty? And he said, you make it functional, I'll make it pretty. But even
Perfect.
then there's been, I kept saying I felt like Xeno chasing a tortoise because it kept moving just a little bit in front of me. There's a lot of sort of moving targets, you sort of start working and you realise, oh, damn, there's all this other stuff. And it keeps on going. But we finally caught that tortoise.
Excellent.
He said, but unfortunately there's a few more things to do. But yeah, Liam is currently removing the programmer art and replacing it with...
So it's already begun then?
Yes, the prettification process.
Excellent.
Also techno-babble.
Obviously, I'm sure they'll all be aware of that term though. They'll be good with it. If you guys have any questions about like the chart or anything that Barry's been doing, now would be a great time to ask because normally we don't have an actual programmer involved and the rest of us aren't totally up with the techno speak. So
They usually can't catch us. I'm quite shy.
yes, usually behind a closed door somewhere with fingers attached to the keyboard.
Oh, I have a door. We just have a big metal shutter, don't we?
Yes, which is only used in zombie apocalypse-like situations, I would imagine.
We're not actually kidding though. We do have these huge metal shutters over the door and over the windows, which sort of feel like something out of Fallout. Yeah.
That's so Lottie can keep you in line.
Oh, she doesn't need that.
And what are you working on after the Fog of War bits? Is there anything like you can tease? If you don't, that's fine too. I'm just asking you questions on the fly.
Yes, more animation stuff.
Oh, okay.
So the beasties are a little bit differently animated than the ships. So the ships are sort of fairly simple, but the beasties, we've got all sorts of weird stuff going on, which is breaking at the moment.
That sounds very Failbetter-y.
So we've got the scribe spinsters. They've been announced. Not talking about secret monsters.
They've been announced for sure. We haven't shown them a picture, but they're welcome to use their imagination.
Well, they've got sort of scarves. They're not really scarves. They're don't know what they are actually. Sort of flapping in the background.
They're paper. Lottie is miming
paper
to us.
Are they scarves though? It's like paper things. Paper trail. Yeah.
Paper scrolls. Thank you, Chris.
Scrolls. There we go. They are scrolls. And they flap in the breeze quite nicely. And the Cantankerite, who I haven't actually seen yet, but I imagine will be terrifying, judging by
They have seen, in fact.
Oh,
because
you know
Liam
more than me.
talked through how he rigged them, which was quite interesting.
I only read the bit on the update, which is about me.
It's all coming to light now, Barry.
Yeah, I'm very self-centered like that. I'll have to read that.
I think, yeah, you guys have seen the spinsters, but not in motion, because specifically we were deciding between different animations to show you guys in the sprint vlogs and on the podcast. So I don't think you've seen them in motion yet, but you may have seen a still image of them.
A-list actor, yeah. Not as good looking though. Instances where hosts turn against each other, yes. We actually had that today by accident when I was trying to show how the system works. And it was hilarious, because I'm just trying to show this thing off, and then suddenly an enemy comes barreling in, starts shooting at my test enemy. My test enemy takes, offense to this, starts turning around, they start fighting. And I just end up with sort of about a three-way fight going on in my test scene when I'm trying to show the new provocation system. But we all agree this is actually a good test, because it showed it quite well. So, enemies have... Yeah, I'm like that with the specs too, I admit it. Enemies will have tags, sort of tells what type of enemy it is, and some tags don't like each other. So at the moment we've got tacti scouts and marauders, they attack each other. But if the player shoots them, they'll start attacking the player, and then it all just kicked off. So it's one of both tags, so he hated everyone.
It's probably like my commute into work every morning.
Yeah, if you're right in the middle of a fight, you get dragged in, or something else turns up in a fight, that might take the pressure off you.
That's true.
So we've got this sort of wrath value, which can change depending on certain things, but it's also capped for certain things. So the idea I'm thinking is if you're sort of fighting some pirates or something, and then a sort of massive monster turns up, the pirates are going to go, okay, we don't care about you anymore.
Yep.
We're going to focus on that thing.
That sounds amazing. I can't wait to fully get into the combat of some of those guys.
Yeah, it's been fun. The AI has been a lot of fun. It's been a bit like a mad scientist. We're sort of also working on the... This isn't me, this is Mac, but I've been helping the ramming behavior, which has been quite fun.
Yep, and that eventually, presumably, will impact your hull as well. But you mean specifically the momentum, right? If you...
Currently it's just the AI, so we've sort of changed it so that you can set an AI tactic to ram the player. Last time I looked, he hadn't actually turned it off, so what we ended up with was the enemy ramming the player, and then just never stopping.
Excellent.
Just taking all the way out into space.
An excellent tactic.
Actually, no, after that it was ram, move back, and it just kept doing this all the time.
The parallel parking technique, yes. I know that very well.
It's fun, just because it goes wrong so often, and the glitches are usually hilarious.
I can imagine. I very much enjoy the screenshots that are generally shared and/or GIFs in the channel.
Dancing ships. We've shown the dancing ships GIF. I quite like that one.
I don't think we have, but we should definitely keep a folder and then perhaps share a few of them sporadically. I think that'd be pretty good.
This is when enemies could get into combat with each other, but didn't actually have guns. So all they did was just sort of move towards each other in a circle. It was quite elegant, really.
Yeah, we could set it to some music, I think. That'd be very cool.
And so I'll be working on getting the beasties in, getting them animated, and then getting them fighting the player. So Mac is working on melee attacks. So at the moment we only have enemies which shoot at you.
Yep.
But we also want enemies that ram you, claw you, just kill you in various different ways. So
excellent.
Add it to the list of things I've implemented to the game to kill players, along with hunger and fear.
Yes, that is why Barry is God in programmer speak. No wonder why you only read articles about yourself.
If you die, it's my fault, isn't it?
I don't know. I think players expect that space will not be kind to them. So I think that while some of them can blame you, the majority will understand.
Can we kill space trains via ramming as well, or just they us? I think so, yes. I
would imagine once everything's implemented.
It will depend on your locomotive. The hard one, you can take more damage.
That is true. Lottie from off-screen is giving us advice.
Yes, and certain ships might be able to, should be able to ram, and maybe you can sort of fit a big spike to the front. You have jousting, you have ship jousting.
That sounds amazing. Can you kill a black hole or a star? Well, that's more of a content question, and I'm sure they wouldn't answer anyways. So if Chris wants to chirp in with anything delicious, I'm sure he will.
they're not quite black holes, are they? They're the wells.
That's
And
true
I
too.
don't think I can say anymore.
Quick, somebody take Barry off screen.
The content team is standing next to me with a big hook in case I say something wrong that's going to yank me off. I shouldn't give them ideas, they'll do that next time.
Yeah. They're very creative anyway, so it's dangerous.
Will there be diplomatic effects if your enemies killed by other enemies? I believe so. Once again, that's a content question. We've added in stuff for that, so we can sort of have wrath dependent on your qualities. So if certain quality, you have certain quality, enemies won't fight you. If you're a friend of London, you won't have to deal with all the London ships attacking you. But if you're allied with the teases, you'll have to deal with them. And we can sort of turn on and off combat, so some things won't fight you, whereas other things will be going after you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's why we've been spending so much time creating all these different passions and wrath and trying to make it as dynamic as possible.
Yeah.
So that we have options like that, but then obviously we have to connect it to what's going on content-wise. So
yeah, it's been quite exciting because I've made all these systems and I've handed them over to Adam and some people, and they've done really cool stuff with it. Like I just sort of made a couple of simple provocations just to test them. I give it to Adam and he makes this whole sort of ecosystem where they all end up fighting. It's pretty cool to see what content are doing the stuff I've made, because they're all very talented and they're watching, so I'm going to compliment them, and they can do a lot of clever stuff with it.
excellent. Will there be merchant traders which have a dynamic effect on the economy?
There are going to be trading ships moving around. So we talk about these passions, which can be sort of violent. We're going to patrol and attack people, or we're just going to stay by this asteroid. If anything comes along, kill them. That's the Cantankerite. We've also got ships moving around, so we'll have trade ships that just sort of move around from port to port, and we can make them do various things. Once again, that's up to content. I'm buck passing to them.
A lot, but I think it's also something that's probably in a later sprint, which is why we haven't talked about it yet. But definitely trading is going to be, I know, for example, that we talk about it a lot in regards to things in the future, in regards to planning and things like that. So I'm sure we will talk about it more once we've started working on it. But since we're building the game, piece by piece as we go along with different systems coming in, then we can talk about it more once they've been worked on more.
There we go, content.
Yay! It's great having Chris in these chats.
I can just throw all the questions to him. Just sit here doing nothing. 15 minutes of work. Not say that in front of Lottie.
No, this is why we have Lottie behind the screen, so that she can give looks.
Well, I can see her face, I can see her look there, I just got one hell of a glare there.
Very dangerous.
Ram the sun, yes, but you need a very big ram.
On that note, unless there's anything that you would like to sort of tease or leave them with, then I think we will switch into content, since it seems to be going that way.
Yeah, you can ask them all the questions.
Poor James.
I don't know what to tease. There's so much you should be excited about.
Indeed.
And keep it vague.
That's perfect. And then as you depart, make sure you unclip your mic, because I don't want to see you stop at the wall because you're yanked back by the wire. Excellent, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. James, you're more than welcome to join. Now everybody knows what the podcast is on. Have you used that mic yet?
Possibly.
Yes.
No.
Now we have James joining us, so you can ask him content questions, although I'm sure Chris will be guarding the secrets with his life and that little sword icon that he has.
Okay, I think that works.
Yay, it worked for Barry, so I'm sure they'll let us know if for any reason they can't hear you. Although I do think we're a bit echoey just because we don't have a wall anymore. But hopefully they can hear us well enough to decipher what we're saying. You've caused controversy without saying anything at all.
I mean, I have to be the only one.
Very true. So I'm trying to think if there's a cool segue that I can use, but I don't think there is, so I'll just ask you plainly. What have you been up to in Skies?
I'm trying to think what I said last time. I think the major thing I've done since last time was we have a port called Port Prosper, which is Chris's idea, which is
Dangerous.
this kind of Gibraltar, which if you're not sure what that is, it's a kind of odd Spanish, it's an odd British colony that's in Spain, kind of right off the end, but still British sovereign territory. And I hope no one's from Gibraltar, but
It'd be great if this entire chat was just accidentally from
switches
Gibraltar.
off.
Yes.
It's sort of like going back to the 50s, and so our equivalent is this kind of little London it's at the end of the Isambard line, which is one of the permanent railways between London and elsewhere, and the Reach is the place it goes to. So this Port Prosper is at the very end of that, and it's built around this giant mountain, and it's guarded, and it's kind of sort of stuck 20 years behind London. So it has doilies and tea shops, and kind of everyone's very aware of their manners and their social status. The tea shop is actually called the Admiral Nelson
Excellent.
in Port Prosper. And it's got a bit of a class divide because at the West End it's all sort of very polite and staid, and everyone wears starch on their moustaches and shirts. And the East End, which is where the kind of factories of the Windward Company, which is a sort of proxy of London, is operating a kind of refining hours mine from the Mother of Mountains in Lustrum.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's the main port I've been working on.
And I think that you've been working on some systems as well.
Yeah, and we have the Winchester War, which is, so when you start off in the Reach, it's kind of in an uneasy equilibrium between two powers. There's the Windward Company, this sort of ostensibly neutral company that deals in kind of trade and specifically operating kind of the mining of hours.
Yeah.
And at the other end you've got the Assembly, which is the kind of mix of independent powers in the Reach that kind of have their meeting point in New Winchester. And they are kind of supporting the Tacketies, the independents and the rebels from London's rule. And at the moment they're in a kind of uneasy alliance because they're both based on New Winchester, and sort of there's a lot of everything's fine, everything's smiling. Kind of people are blowing each other off in the kind of far-flung regions of the Reach, and everyone's denying responsibility for it.
Of course.
And so gameplay-wise we want to kind of simulate a system whereby that war and that conflict would change and kind of go up and down based on some player action, but a lot of it would be happening sort of behind the scenes, which is difficult to do given most qualities are attached to your player character.
Yes.
And there isn't a huge way of kind of having stuff happen under the HUD. So we kind of make use of timers, which I think is what's really made this possible, has been having kind of, as the timer fires off. At the moment in early access, the storylet opens and you'll see a bunch of branches, or you'll only see one branch, but they'll have different random effects based on how high your various qualities are for each side, and they'll go up and down, and they'll change each time, and then you'll be able to go back to New Winchester, check your newspaper, and see a newspaper report which will give you kind of some flavour as to what's happened. Why are the Windward Company ascendant, why is the Tacketies ascendant, and over time one of them can get a significant advantage and take over. So the Windward Company could boot the Assembly off New Winchester, but they're not out of the count with player help, and again with this random system. They go to, if the attack is kicked off, they'll be in Lustrum. You go and deal with them there and help them regain their support and regain control.
So it's not even just like one tiny area that is affected by this, but it will continue on. Yeah.
One of the 4 regions of the game, this will kind of be the continual backdrop to that.
Excellent. That's really cool. I think that players, especially that have played Sunless Sea and now are looking forward to Sunless Skies, will really enjoy that kind of world tension. I'm very interested to see how Fallen London will sort of fare with the two different sides.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Yeah, that was. I mean, the part where I got to like went slightly mad writing QVDs just for every possible permutation of the system. QVDs are how we kind of will have different content will appear on one branch. We have to write like a zillion, and they're all based on kind of the balance of these qualities affecting the Winchester War. And there must have been about 40 or 50 possible
Oh my god.
results. Yeah.
How much tea did it take to power
Well,
this
luckily it was
creation?
work from home day, so
Oh, okay,
the
perfect.
kettle was just on.
Yes. I have no idea about the Axel question, so I am just going to leave that there unless you have anything pertinent to say about it. You can just glance at them knowingly if you'd like as well. Festivals.
Oh, there's quite a few in Port Prosper actually.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, one of the systems we have in Port Prosper is you can build your reputation with the east side or the west side, and every time you go back or every few days, a new event will open. They'll be on a cycle.
Okay.
And like you can go and take tea at the Admiral Nelson and kind of engage in like really passive aggressive kind of reading circles. Everyone has like morally improving literature and all kind of passing into each other. But like, Jeremy, you should read this passage. I think it's relevant to you.
Very London, I like that.
Or you can go into the east side, go and hang out in factories, and then you can go to parties, and sometimes you'll be asked to kind of, because you're a sky captain, you have relative impunity. You're a little bit suspicious. You're an outsider.
Yep.
But you can move between the classes. And so how the other two sides of Port Prosper react to you depends on how you comport yourself in each situation.
Awesome.
So you can go to a party inside, I'll be on my best behaviour, and sort of sip warm flute of champagne and salute the Queen, or the poor picture of the Queen. Or you can kind of get outrageously drunk and give the servants something to gossip about. And have like processions and a big fur that based on one that was in St Andrews. So a lot of oldie worldy stuff.
Excellent. I'm sure that they'll enjoy exploring that, although I have a feeling which side players may go down that road, given that example. East was kind of like Port Cornelian.
A little. It's less tense.
Okay.
It's very stratified. And so the possibility of the kind of shifts in fortune that are possible at Port Cornelian are harder to achieve.
Gotcha. Very cool. And of course, feel free to continue asking questions if you guys have anything. And as always, if you could do the @Failbetter bit first, that makes it a lot easier for us to see, even though we're looking at a gigantic screen. It definitely helps. And do you have anything coming up that you're working on that maybe isn't finished yet, but maybe more current sprint stuff that you can tease?
I'm not actively doing anything in the sprint because I'm on the next exceptional story.
Right.
But after that, we have like a big pitch meeting for Albion, which is the next region we're doing.
Yes.
And we all kind of pitch ports, and the two that I'll be working on are the floating parliament, which the idea was at some point in the past, Victoria decided when she was going to build a new London, she'd kind of dredge the Stolen River for House of Parliament and bring them through with her, get the whole thing up and running again. After about a year, she realised that was a terrible idea and sort of boosted it all off into space, with the MPs mostly on it. And so they're kind of off legislating, no one's really listening, they've got a few token constituencies that still bother listening to them.
Nice.
And so you can go and hang out with them, and that report.
I'm sure it would be delightful.
And at the other end of that, like kind of sort of quite fun one is the kind of Baroque Gothic, the most serene mausoleum. Which is where Victoria stores her favourites, and they'll go for kind of an elaborate funeral to get access to it. And the reason it's a mausoleum is it's almost like an afterlife, because those of her favourites that are allowed access there are given so many hours that they believe they're practically immortal. And so they become increasingly bizarre and like all call themselves things like the Luminous Confessor, and have kind of strange interests and increasingly bizarre obsessions that they spend all their time scheming against each other and trying to pursue, and completely abstracted from anything else out there.
Of course. Correspondence.
We're still figuring out kind of the correspondence at the moment, but we've gotten a few sigils we're coming up with.
Yes.
And areas where they have impact. And I imagine the role of the correspondence will be quite significant, especially if we get into more of the Blue Kingdom and Eleutheria, where
Yes.
judgment's a little more active.
And that's quite like an intricate process throughout the studio as well, because obviously a lot of Kickstarter backers would have gotten correspondence sigils, and that means that it has to go through quite a lot of our teams to get created, and the more teams you involve, obviously, the more intricate it becomes. So first I have to pester all the lovely Kickstarter backers that had gotten that bit, and then get all of their ideas, and then I pass it along, obviously, to both the content team and to the art team to take a look at. And we haven't really struck into that sprint fully yet, and I'm sure we will later down the line, but then you guys will have to chat, presumably back and forth, to make sure that everything lines up.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're developing region by region, so as you say, they'll be quite significant in two of the other regions, but we haven't started working on those because we've just entered Albion, correct?
Yeah, and
Okay.
we're just kind of doing that fun bit where I kind of, the CMS is there kind of shiny and new and blank and kind of adding kind of new tags and kind of little bits of content are going in, and then...
Definitely. But eventually all of that, I'm sure, will become much more, I don't want to say commonplace because it's not, but obviously you will have more experience in how everything works together, and it'll be more cemented how Sun of the Skies works in general.
Yeah, definitely. But it's fun. It's kind of like learning as you go. Well, we obviously kind of plan a lot out in
Yes.
advance, but then kind of going through and kind of going, a new frontier, a new place to explore, and then filling that out and kind of making that into a whole new world is great.
Definitely. I really enjoyed the pitch meeting that I got to sit into, and they discussed all the Albion ports. I can't wait until we get to see more of that, because sitting in that meeting and listening to all the pitches, I really wanted to see what the art would look like too, and like all the different facets that come together. So I think that'll be really exciting, because so far obviously you guys have only seen the Reach and heard little bits and pieces about Albion, but soon we'll be going more fully into that. Cool. So more on correspondence later. But if you guys have any further questions, otherwise I think we'll begin to wrap up. I think too, this has been quite a busy time for content, hasn't it?
Yeah, because we had the election, an in-house exceptional story.
Yes.
Which we have another one of those, plus a bunch of revamps as part of Dory and the Fall London project.
Yes.
And
known
also,
to you guys as Fallen London Reworks, but yes.
And Sun of the Skies going on all at the same time, so it's been a month.
I think it's interesting because obviously we have probably a good percentage of writers compared to most other studios, because even though we're small, we have a sizable writing team. But when you have to do Skies plus, election plus, an exceptional story, all of that takes quite a bit of time, because you guys obviously have to do QA, and Olivia must edit everything and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's I think we've got a kind of smooth and robust enough process that no one's kind of head explodes, but it's a lot of plates spinning.
Definitely.
But kind of going from writing kind of newspaper reports for Sun of the Skies, and then kind of suddenly shifting back to the election, where I wrote a lot of the not the social stuff, the kind of talking to candidates, getting their platforms, kind of suddenly kind of going, right, as a war, now you're having to either Dauntless Temperance campaign, and I'm going back to Sun of the Skies.
And accidentally the Temperance campaigner ended up in Sun of the Skies.
Yeah.
We'll know who's responsible for that. Although it could be Cash as well, who knows?
You can't stop him.
No. Cool. So I think that will do us for this podcast. I know obviously you need to get back to writing all the things that we just mentioned. So I will point at Lottie to close us down, and then she can wave at us throughout the screen to let us know when we've ended. But we'll see you in not next week, but the week after, and have many more exciting things for Skies to show you. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.